Well, good evening. Welcome to the May 14th Richland 2 School Board of Trustees meeting. We opened at 5:30 and went to executive session, and we have returned back from that to public session. I believe we will have another executive session afterwards, but that's on the agenda tonight. At this time, we're going to have a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? In our moment of silence, let's remember the family of Beth Phillips, who passed away this week. She was a teacher at Catawba Trail, but had taught in many schools in our district for over 30 years. So let's remember that family and lift them up as we have a moment of silence. Many of the items that we will have in second executive session, not all will involve students. So if you need to talk to someone here tonight, Ms. Chisholm or someone about that, we won't make a decision until after. So at this time, do I hear approval of the current agenda?
So moved.
Motion, do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Approving the agenda. Next, we move on to we have a consent agenda, which includes minutes from our previous meeting, a budget update, student readmission request, student admission request into the district's adult education program, ratification of personnel. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Sure.
Yes.
I ask that we remove the ratification of personnel.
Right. That's correct.
Second.
All but that will be taken up into next agenda. All right. Any
Or later in the meeting. I want to make sure
meeting,
people realize we're not removing it from the agenda, just moving it to a different place.
That's correct. Any other? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Our next item is item 6.1 student learning. Dr. Rochu.
Yes, at this time I'd like to call on our Chief Academic Officer, Sue Millette.
Thank you, Dr. Brochu. We're delighted tonight to have a group of young people who spent a good bit of time this past few months in Colombia, South America. And we have with them, we have Alicia Lewis, who is one of our Spanish teachers and lead Spanish teacher, Meredith Ward, and then the one who really knows what it was all about, Gloria Ham, and I'm going to turn it over to Gloria. Or Alicia? Who wants to go first? Okay. Blythewood, okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Alondra. And I'm Cassandra. We spent the third quarter in Cali, Colombia, studying at Gimnasio de la Colina, a small private school in Cali. The high school there is a lot smaller than Blythewood. It has about 200 high school students, whereas Blythewood has 1,600. It was a big difference for us, so we had to learn to adjust to that. While we were there, we lived with host families, and living with host families was a great experience. I got the opportunity to do and see a lot of things I had never seen or done before. It was also a chance to see how the cultures are both similar and different in lots of ways. It helped me grow as a person because I learned to adapt and I learned how to be independent. When I came back, I had a big sense of achievement because I knew I was able to do it by myself. I think this is a great opportunity, and I think lots of other students would love to have the chances I did, and they'd love to see this. I'm really glad I got to be a part of this experience.
So I guess kind of picking up on what she said about changing as a person, I feel like this experience, it taught me to be more open towards new experiences, new cultures, new foods, new people, new routines, which is always kind of hard, a new way of living, and a new culture, which was really fun. I enjoyed it. And I also changed as a learner. I felt like even before this experience, I was good at adjusting to new circumstances, but going on this trip and being in this new place made me be even better at that. Especially, I had to learn to adjust to a lot, especially in school, and not just with the education, but with my surroundings. I had to get accustomed to learning in Spanish, which was something totally new, but I liked it. It was cool. And I had to get accustomed to not having commodities that I have here at home that I complain about, even though I shouldn't, like air conditioning. Overall, I just had to adjust to a different climate. You know, it was cold here and then it's hot over there, so it's like completely different. And I had to adjust to Spanish being the dominant language, which at first it kind of throws you off, and you're like, oh, okay. And so it kind of hits you that you're in a new place. And I had to adjust to a different form of currency. So I just felt like the different form of currency, the different dominant language, and the different climate, I felt like those were the three most challenging things to adjust to. And I'd also kind of like to adjust the culture a bit, if that's okay. Yes? Okay, well, just the culture, it was completely different. You know, the people in Cali are just so cheerful and friendly, and they like to dance, so they play music all the time. And in Cali, the people speak Spanish distinctly from other parts in Colombia and Latin America and Mexico. So it was new, it was fun, and it was interesting to hear that and to get to know that. There was different fruits and different foods that we got to try just because Colombia is, and where we were specifically, Cali is different in climate and stuff. And overall, it was just a really good culture, it was a good experience, and I really enjoyed it.
Hello. How are you guys today? I'm Kevin.
I'm Wesley.
And I'm Amanda Fitzgerald.
So like the culture in Colombia, it was very different.
What school are you from?
We're from Westwood. Sorry.
Thank you.
The culture was different. it wasn't like ours, so it was really difficult to get used to it. Like over there, like the schools and stuff, they would call their teachers by first names, and I didn't really adjust to that well because it was like, Lisa? No, you're Miss Lisa, not Lisa. And the culture, that's really the one thing that I liked about going over there, like to learn it, and it was just a great opportunity.
Learning the language over there, I believe it's more like better than learning it in like a classroom, because when you're over there, you're in the real world and you're like forced to learn it, so it gives you adaptation skills, and I think it's just better. And you hear like everybody speaks Spanish every day, and then you just start becoming accustomed to it, so it like gets hardwired into your brain, and it's really great.
My experience in Cali, Colombia, it was a life-changing experience, and it's a memory that I'll always have. It was my first time leaving out of the country, first time riding a plane. Meeting everybody was really, really nice. I made friendships that will last with me forever. And that's about it. The experience was really, really great, and I hope that the program will continue, because it's a great way to learn Spanish, because you immerse in the language, and it can really help other children if they want to master the language, learn it. Thank you.
Hi, how are y'all doing tonight? I'm Jared.
I'm Alexis Jenkins.
I'm Jade Gilbert. I'm Inez Nicholson.
I'm Jamie Durden.
And Jordan Byrne.
And we're from Spring Valley High School. One of the first points that I wanted to talk to y'all about tonight is acclimation and preparation for the trip. When we first got notice about this trip, it was kind of in late October, early November, so it didn't give us a whole lot of time to really get prepared for the trip that was coming up. And like we were walking down the hallway one time, and it was like, okay, your money has to be due, it's due today. And it was kind of like, well, $1,200, that's a lot to come up with in one day. So a little bit more preparation would have been a little bit useful. But once we got there, it was great. When we got there, it was very welcoming. The first week was a little bit difficult because we're trying to, get accustomed to a new language, new housing, new parents, so to say. Just the whole culture was different. You're having to learn different things, new school, and everything was just, it was so different, but at the same time, it was a eye-opening experience to everything that we were coming to, and this was a great program, and I hope we really continue it.
I am going to be talking about the entertainment, like the things we did for fun while we were there. Of course, being in a different culture, there's a million different things to do in a Spanish-speaking country that we weren't able to do in the United States. Dancing was a big part of that. So here in the United States, dancing, we just don't go out and do that, but it was like, I don't know, living in Dirty Dancing or something, and which was good. And the fincas, which were like the farms there, we got to see like the country life, and it was just a whole different, like, eye-opening experience to see what other children our age are doing in different parts of the world.
So a big part of the 9 weeks there was, the family, obviously, that's who we're staying with, living with. As soon as we got off the plane, all our families were there with big banners, and they grabbed me and kissed me and hugged me, and I was a little scared at first, but it turned out it was great. The families, they give you a room, they treat you like they're your kid, and so that's a huge thing to have when you're 3,000 miles away from home. You have people that are treating you just like I was back here. The houses, they were all great. The families, I have two. I call them my brothers, 2 brothers and a sister, and then my 2 parents down there. And I think all of us have been keeping up with our families, so they definitely a bonding experience and relationships we can continue, throughout our whole lives.
A couple problems that I encountered when I was down there was just
sometimes when you go somewhere new, your body doesn't adapt very well, and I was kind of sick some of the time, so that wasn't that good. But other than that, basically what everyone has said has been pretty true, and we just need to find a way to work out all the kinks, and then it'll be fine, and people can go and they can experience this wonderful experience that just completely changes your outlook on life. And I really hope that we can continue this program.
Hi, I'm Alexis, and I will be talking about the housing arrangements. Like, part of the immersion into the culture is also being able to entertain outside of your house and being in the city of the events there. Jamie and I were the only two in the mountains, which were 30 minutes away from the city. Being that far, it was difficult to coordinate with the other students in the city to do things in like events and going to the movies without having prior approval and prior arrangements to get transportation back and forth. So I would like this program to grow on, and since I would like that, we need to do the housing arrangements better, either have us all in the city so we could all coordinate and be together and not feel left out of events that other students got the chance to have. This program was amazing, and I would love for it to go on. It's an experience that everyone should have in their life, to get to learn in a different country and the cultures of other people, how they're living. And so that's just a blessing to be able to have that experience. Thank you.
Couldn't catch them.
So I'm going to talk about, I'm not sure what to do here. Okay. I'm going to talk about, I can spend 9 weeks in a foreign country, but I can't figure out this. But, I'm going to talk about schooling. When I first started going around and telling all my teachers I was going on this trip, the initial response was really like, why are you doing this to me? All my teachers were really worried about their AP pass rates. And yeah, so why are you doing this? You're going to fail your AP exam. You're not going to be taking a class for 9 weeks, the whole quarter 3. It's the quarter before your big AP test. Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing this to my pass rate? So it was really like the big leading question going into the trip, and we were assured, the people that were doing AP tests, taking AP classes, were assured that the rigor and the classes would match up pretty much pretty seamlessly from Columbia with a U to Cali, and but when we got over there, it really wasn't the case. And so about 2 weeks into the trip, we got some news that we were gonna have to kind of do our work down there along with our work for our AP classes in Columbia. So that was awesome. I got to basically do two schools at once. I mean, I don't regret a minute of it. I'm kind of glad. Like, on one hand, I was glad that I spent the extra time studying for AP, but at the same time, it was really hard at the time to make. You have to make sacrifices down there. You have to decide: am I going to go to this class with my Colombian friends and be immersed in the culture today, or am I going to spend some time in the library studying for my AP class? And it's a hard decision to make when you're down there for the experience, for the cultural experience. So I would just caution anyone that's doing APs next year and also thinking about doing a exchange trip that there's going to be kind of there's some give and take there, and so just keeping that in mind for the students going next year. Awesome.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Ham, and I was the lucky teacher who got to go this year for 9 weeks to beautiful Cali, Colombia with these wonderful kids. I think I speak for all of us if I say that it was a great, great experience. We had ups and downs, of course. Not everything was a rose. We took several trips to the hospital. There were some tears shed and some misunderstandings. And, there was a little bit of everything. But overall, I think it was just a wonderful experience for all of us. Living the culture, being there, eating the people's food. I know that at times it was hard, because it is hard when you are thrown in a group with people of your same culture, but being thrown into a family with a culture different, totally different to yours. And these kids They adapted. They went with an open mind. They did the best that they could. And I think this project is amazing because I think all of them came with a stretched mind that I hope it never goes back to what it was. They learn experiences that they would never have learned in the classroom. And I think it's something that even though we need to adjust a few things before we continue with the program, it's a program that definitely we need to continue with, because in our district we say that we are preparing our kids as citizens of the world. I can tell you that these kids, they have started into that career of being citizens of the world. I think this experience will stay with them forever, and I think they came out of it better because of it. Thank you so very much for all your support. Thank you for allowing all of them and for allowing me to be part of this experience. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for sharing your experiences, and as one who's traveled to countries not our own origin, I know what it's like. It's very difficult. Y'all stayed much longer than I did. I mean, golly, that's a long time to stay out of the country. But,
I have one question.
Sure, yeah.
The gentleman did you pass your AP courses? Okay. Well, good luck. You deserve to.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, here, our next item on the list is public participation. At this time, did anyone sign up? So, is there anyone who would like to address the board at this time? Seeing no hands go up, we're going to move right along. Executive session items will be after the second executive session. We have no items to vote on. Old business action requested. The approval of revisions to our policy, our dress code, JICA-JICA-R, which is the policy and the rules to go with the policy. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we accept the dress code as presented.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second it.
This time there's discussion before we vote.
The discussion on that, I think I just want to, I don't think I have anything on that particular part. I was pleased with the way that it was written up, because I think some people were concerned with my comments before. But on the way that the new policy is written, I was very pleased with that. I think that the committee, Cheryl, everybody did a good job on that. So for the principals who were upset with me, you can get over it now, because it was well written. That's what I was looking for in the policy, and I do appreciate you guys getting that done. And it was on that one, and Dr. Washington, I think I sent that to you, where the parent was asking about those sports or whatever those things are.
Right, and I responded to the board and to that parent.
Right, so that means they're not supposed to be wearing those, right? Right. But I just thought when I read the policy in its entirety, you guys did an outstanding job, and that's what I was looking for. That was my intent of what I was saying the other night. So thank you very much on getting that spelled out as best as possible. I definitely appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll call for the vote at this time. It passes unanimously. We'll go on to our next item, 9.2, request for the Center for Accelerated Preparation Transportation out of our capital funding. Dr. Brashear, I'll turn it to you.
Yes. At this time, I'm going to ask that Jack Carter, our executive director, come and share a little bit of information regarding the transportation services to support our CAP program and what all is entailed with that. And also we have Shelley Allen from Finance Department here as well for any questions on the financial side. Mr. Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the budget proposal this year, there was a pilot program for CAP transportation. At the last working session, you placed into the budget the general fund operating costs for that particular program. At that time, Mr. Davis said we would bring back the capital side. So tonight we are bringing you the capital side. It's 3 buses at $85,000 per bus, and then another $15,000 for associated cameras. That's 2 cameras per bus, radios, and the other associated equipment to set up the equipment. We did look at used buses, but it was going to cost us $80,000 to $81,000 to buy a 3-year-old bus. It seems to make more sense to go ahead and buy a brand new.
Make more sense to what?
Buy a brand new one. We'd only save $4,000 per bus by going with a 3-year-old bus that already had 3 years on it.
Okay, Ms. Brill.
Since we didn't include the cost of the buses in our budget, we just included.
This is coming out of capital. This is not general fund. This is a capital fund.
Okay.
You did in your budget include the salaries and the fuel cost and the maintenance.
The operational side.
It's the operational cost, which is a general fund expenditure. This is a
capital fund.
This is a one-time purchase.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Jack, seating capacity of these buses are?
We were shooting for somewhere in the 68, 72 range. As soon as we get the proposals back, I can give you an exact number.
I'm only asking because we're getting 3 and wondering whether or not that's the number we need. Is that more than we need? It sounds like that. I guess.
Well, as you know, as you may recall, the plan is the students will ride a zoned school bus. So if they're zoned to Blythewood Middle, they'll ride a bus that would provide them transportation to Blythewood Middle. We will then, and these 3 buses will be part of that first morning transportation. As soon as we have dropped at the middle school, we will then proceed to use these 3 buses, and we still have to work the routes out because we'll have to get some numbers before we can finalize the routes. But they will then shuttle down to CAP. CAP will move to a high school schedule, so we'll have, from the time we drop them off at the middle school, gives us plenty of time to go from one school to another. Probably 2 schools per route, maybe 1 school will only have one pickup.
What's the schedule in?
They're on a middle school schedule. They start at 7:30.
Thanks for sharing. I didn't know that they were going to change it. So thanks for sharing.
And the high school schedule is 8:30. So it just gives
Right
us,
now we have approximately 80 students in that program, or 70.
I think it's under capacity, but we believe that, I don't want to speak for Ms. McLeod, but I think given adding the transportation piece will allow us to bring it up to capacity. Because we do know that there are students who would come that cannot provide their own transportation.
But that's why I was asking about the number of buses in terms of more than we needed. And you answered the question in anticipating increased enrollment.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter, I know this may be a crazy question, but the capital budget, that's part of our general budget, correct? Just
No,
wanted to
sir.
set
That's
aside. Part of
8%
Okay.
or a building fund. And we had some capacity there. So.
You have some capacity within the 8%.
Yes, sir.
That's what's coming up. That's from this last year's 8%.
Correct.
Thank you. I just want to be sure I was clear on exactly what budget that was coming
That's
out.
right.
We can buy buses out of general fund, but we generally don't because it is a capital investment. We're not precluded from doing it that way.
No, I understand. I was just making sure I knew. I know it by 8% better than I know it by capital fund, and I just wanted to make sure I was
I'm
clear.
afraid we
on it.
use that term interchangeably sometimes, but it's the same thing.
Follow, Mr. Chairman. So I want to be clear too, Jack. I'm glad to hear what you think. I think I hear you saying. That is, these new buses, which South Carolina is struggling to get, will be used in our district for dual purposes.
Yes, sir.
Transporting students to their designated zone,
middle school, and then picking students up and then taking them to the CAP program.
Plus, they will also allow us, we intend to buy buses that have the capacity to carry luggage. So then we frequently run out of activity buses. This will allow us to use these buses for baseball, softball, other activities after school. It gives us a little more capacity.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Carter. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Anderson, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Manning. We're ready to vote. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Next item of business is new business, no action requested. Report on the Common Core standards. Dr. Brochu, I'll turn it over to you and your team.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Tonight we're going to begin with the first of a series of reports regarding the Common Core. The Common Core state standards provide a consistent, clear understanding of what students are expected to learn, so teachers and parents know what they need to do in order to help them. The standards are designed to be robust and relevant to the real world, and they reflect the knowledge and skills that our young people need to succeed in college and careers. The Common Core standards for English language arts and mathematics were adopted by South Carolina as its standards in English language arts and mathematics in July of 2010. The standards will be fully implemented during the school year of 2014-15. Again, the Common Core standards, we believe, are going to help us to level a playing field, if you will, for all of our students. It will certainly change the way that we must teach. Our students will not only have to understand, but they'll also have to be able to demonstrate their learning in both those curricular areas. In classrooms, you will see and hear more students that are leading discussions, questioning and responding to each other's ideas, whether in either subject area, English language arts and mathematics. We believe these are more focused, more comprehensive, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Sue Millette, our Chief Academic Officer, and she is going to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Brochu, and members of the board. I sent you 6 separate pieces of information. I know that's a lot to digest, and I know you'd like to get all the information before the board, so I apologize for not having this ready, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to take what really was relevant and what's meaningful from the Common Core. As Dr. Brochu said, this is the beginning of a 3-part session, and so this really is the overview of the Common Core standards. We are delighted to really give this information to you and share it with you, and we're also open to any comments afterwards or questions that you might have. At this time, we're going to have a quick little video that we think will sort of set the stage for our Common Core.
Like it or not, life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of school. We like to think that our education system does that, but when it comes to learning what they really need to be successful after graduation, is a girl in your neighborhood being taught as much as her friend over in the next one? Is a graduating senior in, say, St. Louis as prepared to get a job as the graduate in Shanghai? Well, it turns out the answer to both of these questions is no. Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. That's making it too hard to know if our kids are really doing well enough overall, and if they can really compete for a job someday. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core state standards come in. They're like a total sea change in education. Consistent, strong, clear benchmarks for English language arts and math. Here's how it works. You can think of kindergarten through 12th grade like a giant staircase. Each step is a skill your child needs to learn before stepping up to the next one. But right now, too many kids aren't really confident with like 2 plus 2 before they have to move on to 2 times 2. We need more focus on the skills that help them move up the stairs, or they can slip up and fall behind. And there's another problem. What if everyone's stairs were made at different heights? Well, here we go again. They are. So, a boy in Seattle who's rocking an A in English literature could be getting a C on his Chicago friend's staircase. Oops. We need to create consistent steps in education too. So first, each standard creates a landing on the staircase, a stop along the way as your child heads toward high school graduation. Each stop is a chance for every parent and teacher to focus on the skills their students are supposed to know at that step, no matter the zip code, language, or race. And more importantly, each standard makes sure all students are learning what they need to know to get to graduation and beyond. Because something like counting to 100 leads to understanding dollars and cents, which eventually leads to understanding how to manage a budget. Secondly, the standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase. But standards aren't learning. That's why we need teachers, parents, and students to help make that happen by working together to help kids meet these standards. The world's getting more and more competitive every day. But now, when our kids get to the top of their staircase, they can have way more options on where their life goes from there. Clear goals, confident, well-prepared students. That's the Common Core State Standards.
That's a quick overview of what the state standards are. And what I'd like to share next is exactly what they really are and what they really are not. They are aligned to the college and work expectations. They are clear and understandable and consistent, as Dr. Brochu said. And it includes rigorous content and application of knowledge. Students need to talk about their math and how they learn. They need to talk about their ELA and how they learn and why they're learning it, and understand text, understand problems. It's been informed by other top performing countries, as you saw in the little video, and it is evidence-based. What they are not, though, they were not intended to be a set of curriculum, guides, or maps. And you may have heard some of the discussion about that. It is not a set curriculum. It is simply our standards. And we look at these standards as the baseline, and what we do is bring our students up gradually to the very top, so everybody has an equal opportunity. It does not define intervention methods or materials that we can use. It does not limit or narrow the scope of what we do, and it doesn't really determine how a teacher teaches, but it will change the need for teachers to change the way they teach currently. It's a whole paradigm shift. And we'll start with English language arts. What you have here are the instructional shifts and the assessment shifts. In pre-K, you have balancing the informational literary text. Typically in the past, students did more in early childhood with the literary, and then you gradually did more with the informational. Now you're going to see more of the informational being included in the elementary and moving up. So in fourth grade, for example, it might be 50-50, and then by the time they are senior, it will be 70% informational and 30% literary. It's building knowledge in the disciplines. It's not just ELA. These standards cut across science and social studies literacy, and so it is now integrating what we are learning in our schools, particularly at the high school. And as you saw in the video, it is a staircase of complexity. Starting in kindergarten, we know where they need to be by the time they graduate and can go on to college or career and remain in college. A lot of our students can get into college, but many of them don't stay there. They drop out. So we want to make sure that we provide them with the skill set that they need. text-based answers and writing from sources. This is very different from just a prompt that says, what's a favorite time of year for you? It is really taking a look at the text that they're reading, whether it's a science book or whether it's social studies, whether it's Martin Luther King's speech, taking a look and really examining what is being said there and what the implications are. And then having to include the evidence from those as they write and they speak. Academic vocabulary, they're really, according to Common Core, 3 tiers of vocabulary. The first tier really is the literary terms that we taught, and as a former English teacher, that would be conflict, foreshadowing, those kinds of things is considered just for ELA, your literary terms. Tier 2 words are really more academic words that cut across all of the content areas. And these are the ones that teachers should be teaching before and after. They need to be talking about these words, and they need to be able to write and use these words in their writing that they're doing. The level 3 really is more of a domain, more of, say, content specific. And for example, if the word amoeba came up, that would be in a science class that they would have. But the words are tiered, if you will, for Common Core. The next one, and this is really something that I'm excited about, are the anchor standards. And this is coming straight from the college and career readiness studies that have been done. And this is what students need to be able to do. And I'll share those with you in just a minute. But I want you to understand that the Common Core anchor standards go very nicely with the content standards, okay? I'll get it out in a minute. The anchor standards really are the broad-based standards, the broad brush, if you would, and then the state content for ELA are very, very specific. Keep in mind, though, these are K-12, and these anchor standards are in every single grade level. Okay? Next slide. These are the anchor standards, and you have this, I think, in one of your handouts, and I just want to kind of go over this with you. These anchor standards now build in complexity, like the staircase, from kindergarten all the way up to high school. And you see in reading, their key ideas and details, and I won't read them all, but I would like to point out that speaking and listening are very, very important. And you'll see that when we get to the content standards as well. They have to understand what they're saying. They have to understand and listen to other students explaining what they're learning and how they're learning. And they have to be able to present their knowledge in a variety of ways. The next slide shows you the CSS, Common Core State Standards for ELA, and they're called domains. And we have reading that's been taken out. Instead of, in the past, that we had one standard, and that was reading. Now we have reading for literature, reading for informational text, and then you have reading for the foundational skills, and that would be like your phonics and your fluency. Writing, whoops, go back a little bit, thank you. Speaking and listening, this is very critical because students will be assessed on speaking and listening when we have our our Common Core standard assessment in 2014 and 15. And so we have already started in kindergarten and first and second grade having teachers talk to their students about how do you listen to someone's opinion or someone's comment and respond to that and not just go off on a different tangent. And students are learning how to discuss with each other, among each other, without a teacher prompting. And our kindergarten students can do this. So it's very, very important that we start with that speaking and listening. And that is new. We've never been assessed for that. So I thought I would point that out. Okay. Next, we have a comparison that you have in your handout. This is from our old standards. The sample that you have here is just a portion of the 4th grade ELA and how it compares. And you'll notice that some of the standards, I know it's hard to read, but some of the standards, say, in 5th grade now or in Common Core will be now in 4th grade. Some of our 6th grade standards will now be in 4th grade. So it has really focused and narrowed what we're working with as far as our curriculum is concerned. To me, it's very exciting. Then we go to mathematics, and I'm an former English teacher, not a math teacher, but I have enjoyed learning a lot about the math, and I've had some good help back here to help me with that. But the shifts are very important for us to understand. They're not just items in isolation as they have been in the past. Focus means that they are now significantly narrow. Instead of an inch deep and a mile wide, we're going to go deeper with fewer. There's your focus, which makes a lot of sense. Students will be given more time, should be given more time to practice these so that they can master these and go up the ladder. Coherence is making math make sense. They need to be able to talk about it, to share ideas and how they computate something and how they add and subtract and multiply and how that covers a whole array of things. The last one is Rigor, and there are 3 sections to Rigor. There's Conceptual Understanding, and that really is that students need an understanding of the key concepts. They need to really understand it, know it, and be able to talk it. Really, the students are going to do a lot of math talking, and I think that's very, very important. Procedural skills, they'll need to know how to have the speed and accuracy because they need those skills very early so that they build on the skills as they go all the way up through 12th grade. And then application, they need to know what's appropriate to use when, what math application is appropriate to use and can explain why. Okay, here are the math standards by content. You'll see that you have counting cardinality, and that is for kindergarten only. You have operations and algebraic thinking. In the past, in the state standards, algebra had its own domain or strand, if you will. But notice that number and operations has been divided into 2. You've got base 10 and fractions, and that's another big aha for our elementary students. Fractions really are going to start being taught and have been in our 1st grade classrooms on a very simplistic level, if you will, and it gets more and more complex as they move up. Measurement and data and geometry, we had that before, and then the ratios and proportional relationships, that really starts the middle and high school, and that's taken out in the courses that we offer. And you'll hear more about that in our next session when we talk about professional development. Okay? And this is new, too, and this is really exciting for me, that there are standards of practice, and these have been really very rigorous. And it just makes a lot of sense. It goes along with everything that we're doing with our Inspire, Ignite, and Inquire. It really is moving us to project-based learning. It's really making sure that our students understand and know. But they have to make sense of problems and persevere. We have to give them an opportunity to fail. And that's okay. They have to be able to reason abstractly and quantitatively. They have to construct arguments and critique the reasoning of others. That means that they can say to you or to me, this is how I solved the problem, and this is what I used. This is a particular tool that I used, and this is why I used it. And so another student should be able to say, okay, I solved this problem in a different way, and this is why I use this tool and not this tool. Okay, they're talking about it, so they're really beginning to understand. Model, that's understanding that math happens in everyday life. It's here. And then I've mentioned the tools, attend to precision. Vocabulary, and when instead of just saying I'm adding 2 numbers, they're going to call them 2 digits, single digits. If they're writing cents, they will say that write the symbol for cents. They have to, in everything that they do, be very precise. Okay? And that's very important. And look for and make use of structure, and that's really patterns that we see. And then look and express regularity and repeated reasoning. And this is a slide of what you have. Again, this is 4th grade, our former state standards and our new standards that we have in Common Core. Okay? This is a little brief or sort of simplistic chart, if you will, that shows a little better about how things have changed. You've got the state standards on the left, you've got the Common Core on the right. And the arrows, if you look, for example, 6th grade multiplication division, that's moving to 5th grade. If you look at 5th grade, that's moving to 4th grade. And then the 4th and 3rd equivalent fractions and benchmarks and beginning concepts, that starts really in 1st grade. So we're really asking a lot of our students, but what teachers are going to have to do is scaffold their learning, be patient with them, give them time to practice and to talk. You'll see hopefully more student talk and interaction than we have before. Okay? And I've put this in. This was something that I shared with you back in June of 2012. And it is simply to give you an overarching timeline. We'll get more in-depth into that when we have our professional development with our ELA and our math. But we have done quite a bit. I want you to know that we have implemented fully in kindergarten through 2nd grade the math and the ELA. And this year we're implementing it K-12 in ELA and math. And then our session 2, we'll really focus on professional learning. We'll review the progress in ELA and math. And then we have implementation teams, and we're going to talk about that, the role of the district implementation team, as well as the school level implementation team. Okay? Questions? I know that was a lot, but.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, first, Sue, let me thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate that. I think I will reserve most of my questions that center around professional development piece until I hear that presentation. But let me ask some sort of couple of generic questions if I may.
Certainly.
Let me start with an inch deep and maybe end up at a mile, but I'll start with an inch deep. If you look at us on the pendulum of this whole shift or continuum in terms of going from state standards to the Common Core, where would you say we are as a district right now on that pendulum in terms of our level of preparedness today, be ready to roll it out next year?
I would say in kindergarten through 2nd grade, we're ready because they have been working very closely with that. They have also introduced, let me say, to the students who were in 3rd grade, they're now 4th grade, they've introduced fractions, and teachers taught fractions in addition to the state standards. So I feel very confident that we are there. We're not there yet with the others, but we will be.
With the state testing not beginning until 3rd grade, though, K to 2nd grade is, it's okay, but the real measures begin in 3rd grade. So that's sort of the next step, I guess is what I hear you saying.
That's correct, but understand, Mr. Jackson, that in the past, there's not been a whole lot of accountability in kindergarten and 1st grade, and that's not against any of the teachers or anything. There's just not a measurement that we use like we do in 3rd through 8th or the end of course. But those skills that we just went through are necessary and need to be taught in K1 and 2. So when our students who are in 1st grade, I think that's correct, will be 3rd graders, they will be prepared. Okay? And so our 4th graders will be prepared, and our 5th grade students will be prepared as well because they've moved up.
Have you had an opportunity to assess or to survey the teachers to see whether or not they agree with your assessment of their level of preparedness, or is that sort of your suggesting of where you think they are?
That's my take on it. I have not surveyed.
Be interesting to know how they feel, how well prepared they feel.
And we can certainly survey them and put that as a part of our report.
If I may, Mr. Jackson,
sure.
Just in a conversation today with one of our elementary principals, they talked about the fear and concern some time back, and now they feel like they're much better prepared than they even realized as they've been talking with our coaches here and working with them directly with the professional learning that they are doing in the schools.
I also guess you'll talk later about the challenges that will be faced in terms of trying to teach it to kids with special needs, kids who are in poverty, all of those other categories. So I'll save those questions until later. Let me ask
Correct.
this.
Mhm.
If you look at our current MAP results and other state assessments now, would you say that they are a fair predictor of how well we think our students are going to perform on the Common Core state assessment?
I'm going to let Mr. Potts answer that.
Sorry, Mr. Jackson, would you mind repeating?
Sure, sure. If you look at, say, our MAP data, would you say that would be a fair predictor of, since I think someone last time mentioned that we use MAP as sort of a measurement for getting kids ready for Common Core. So since that was brought out, I'm wondering, if you look at the MAP data, do you think that would be a fair predictor now how our students are going to perform when they take the Common Core state assessment for the first time in 2 years from now?
I don't think that would be probably a fair comparison, because the students right now are getting a relatively small look at the Common Core standards. They are seeing a small number of items that are performance tasks, and they have field tested some Common Core items on the exam, but we're not getting a really big picture right now of their performance on that. And the Common Core items are just in the field test, so we don't actually get an opportunity to see how students are performing on those types of items.
I guess this goes back to Sue, then still with that same question. So if we're not real pleased with how our students are performing on MAP, and it's not even a good predictor of how they're going to do on this much more rigorous test, do you have any concern, based upon current data, about where they're going to fall when they take the Common Core assessment for the first time?
Well, yes, we do have concern, but let me say again that by doing the Common Core that we're doing and providing the professional development, which we will delve in very deeply in the next one, I'm confident that our students will perform a lot better on these standard tests, because they are learning to problem solve, they're learning to talk about their learning, and it's not learning in isolation. It's learning in an integrated way, which is much more meaningful for our students. And so I see math particularly as being an integral part of what we talk about and do, and not just, oh, it's math and we have to devote time to math. There are foundational skills they have to have, and the Common Core standards outline those for us. But our students will be, I think, just as we said before, on a level playing field with other students. Now, one of the big changes, Mr. Jackson and the rest of the board, is our teachers' practice. And some of our teachers are really getting into it and they feel very comfortable, and others, it's going to be a paradigm shift for them, because they're used to standing and delivering. They're used to doing more of the talking, and now they don't hold all the knowledge. Knowledge is out there, and we are really becoming more facilitators, if you will, particularly at the high school level, and giving students an opportunity to talk about their learning. They've never really had that opportunity before, and we've never had that as part of our standards. And so it's kind of like, well, why didn't we think of that before? But I know that's a long answer to your question, but I feel confident over time we will see some very good progress with our students.
Test anxiety has always been a big issue and a big concern of a lot of folk. I suffer test anxiety all the time, and so I still do. I know.
I do too.
Yeah. And so we're going from a testing mode now that's less than a week or so, to a testing mode here that's going to be 2 weeks minimum. Kids going to be testing from 8 to 10 hours versus 4 or 5 now. Does that concern anybody? Are you concerned about that? And if so, sort of, have we given some thought to what we are proposing to do to get them ready for this tremendous increase in test anxiety because they're doing it twice as long?
Well, to answer your question, again, we will go into more detail, but let me say that there are sample items for Smarter Balance, and our teachers have been using those and with our students. And we started to do that tonight, but we felt like we didn't have enough time to have you go through some of those performance tasks.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I know you mentioned earlier there's no real accountability for kindergarten and first grade. Are we not still using DRA and COGAT?
Oh, yes, we're using, I'm sorry, Ms. Elkins Johnson. Yes, we are using that, but it's But the pressure, I guess, from the state or the federal government for the testing, the high stake testing, that you don't really see in kindergarten and first and second grade. Now, our teachers do a great job. They're using DIBELS, they're using DRA, they're doing even some math, what is it, benchmarks for math. So, yes, they are testing, they are giving them those opportunities.
So there is accountability.
There is that accountability, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Ms. Millette, what are we doing to prepare parents for this change? Because I know it's a dramatic change. I can't say that I've seen any, if any, material come home to my house. I want to know what we're doing to prepare parents for the change.
And I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Manning. What we're going to do in the fall is prepare a sort of a item that lists some of the key points in the Common Core standards, how they're different from what the parents have been used to, and share those with our SIC and PTA. We'll have a website up and running that will have a parent component that they can go to. It's not there yet, but we're hoping it will be soon, where they can see the information. But we've got to prepare them. We can't just do it alone. And as you saw in the video, it is a collaborative effort. So we are putting forth a great deal of effort in making sure that our parents know.
I just thought it was interesting because my daughter's in second grade, and since we started to implement this year, I thought maybe with the strategies you talked about, there would have been some material to draw our attention as parents to where there were changes as we began the integration. And so I certainly didn't see that this year, but want to make sure that we do that going forward. I also took a quick look through our strategic plan for the district, and I did not notice the words Common Core anywhere in our district strategic plan. So I know we say it's a priority, but when I look at what's on paper and what's our plan moving forward, it doesn't seem like there's an alignment there. Can somebody speak to that?
Who's in charge of the plan?
Dr. McDaniel.
Mr. Manning, you're referencing a lack of use of the term Common Core standards in the strategic plan. We do focus on many things that are probably at a greater level of detail in the strategic plan relative to curricula and moving forward. I'll be happy to look at it as the board moves through the work with goals and objectives. That's the time which we designed to do updates, and so we can certainly look at updating, discussing that, and looking at updates that may address that in a manner that you think is better aligned.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that if it is a priority, that it's a priority everywhere, that we see that through and through the work that we do, and so that we know that that focus is there. Just a little bit of a surprise, I didn't see it anywhere. We knew it was coming, and it may be folded in other things, but...
Well, I'll work with Dr. McDaniel, and we'll make sure we review that. But certainly it is a priority, but I will say, too, that we have spent a great deal of time with professional development, getting teachers to understand the common language and understanding where our direction is, and I think we had to do that in order to really be where we are now with K-1 and 2 and where we plan to be with 3 through 12.
So part of our common language professional development that we've been talking about has included Common Core language as well as the SHLECD and the other Richland 2 framework, and that's been rolled up in there.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, our literacy and math coaches are working with our first and second grade teachers about the Common Core and really going through. Again, they've done a lot, and that's why we decided to sort of chunk these sessions, because we really want to go more in depth with what we have done with professional development and how we have approached the Common Core standards. And so that's why we put that as a separate item. But we have been working very diligently. Our folks have been. They've been in the schools. They've done workshops. We've offered graduate courses, just to name a few. So, yes, we have been dealing with and talking about the Common Core.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we going to have workshops for the parents when you send first graders home with homework with algebra?
Well, it won't be eighth grade algebra, as many of us remember, but we certainly can do parent workshops, and that's one thing that we've talked about that we can do in the fall.
I would like to see us prepare for that because,
Okay.
Some parents haven't been in school for quite a while, and I know I cannot assist mine in the 10th grade with the algebra. And I used to be very good at math, but now, and the way that they're taught now is not the same way that I was taught when I was in school. And so when I start explaining it to them, we come up with the same answer, but it's totally a different route to get there. So
And
I
that's-
think it might be good that we go ahead and prepare parents, for being able to help their students with their homework.
And I appreciate that, Ms. Anderson. That's a great suggestion. And what we're finding is that our students are going to be able to be more successful, but we have to make sure that our parents are. And the one thing about math that I've learned in doing some of this research is that, and I've always known this, there's more than one way to get to an answer. But a lot of times our students would go from elementary to middle or middle to high and say, well, your fifth grade teacher taught you how to do it. I'm going to teach you this way, and this is the way I want you to do it. That's going to change. That's going to change.
So the teachers, they will accept as long as come out the right answer. That is so wonderful because what difference does it really matter as long as the answer is correct? But, I've had big arguments with my grandson because I know my math. Mm-hmm. At least I used to be excellent at it. But because I'm not doing it the way the teacher wanted it done, it's just really aggravating to both of us because we're just not getting it together. So that's the best news I could have heard this evening. And as long as the answer is correct, they're going to accept it. What took us so long to get there?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
I'm really glad to hear that and I'm sure a lot of parents and students will be glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Well, my only question is that what I'm seeing here is, especially in math, you're taking fewer concepts and you're spending more time with these concepts. Am I correct in assessing that?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I think that's great. Personally, I think that's great. But so, what happens if we run out of time? I'm just being honest. Do we have fall? Is it homework? Is it extra work in school? You know what I'm saying? Are we still? How are we taking care of that?
And again, that'll be part of our professional development. But the teachers will have or should provide more opportunities, let me say, for the students to do the practice in class, where they can catch them if they don't understand something, rather than teaching it quickly and then say, here's your homework, okay? And it will be also across content areas. When they're reading the vocabulary, whether it's in science or social studies, students will be able to talk to each other about how they arrived at that particular answer. They'll learn to respect each other's opinions. It may be different, but they'll have that opportunity to really talk and discuss with each other and not talk at each other. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 10.2, proposed revisions to policy GCC/GDC, which is the employee personnel leaves and absences. Dr. Brashear, Dr. Washington, who's doing this?
Mr. Garrick?
If you recall, Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is the policy that Mr. Manning asked us to have concerning adoption, and it's coming before you tonight for your consideration and discussion.
Mr. Chair, before we start with this, I want to make some changes. If you guys have yours with you or on your computer.
That's what this is discussion or action?
Yeah. So this page 2. If you would incorporate whatever verbiage you want to put in there, but I would like to see this read that all, whether it's natural birth or adoption, will be treated the same. Leave time, they will have the same leave time.
Leave, Ms. Anderson, would that just be the removal of the maximum of 30 days paid sick leave, maybe used annually for the adoption of a preschool child? Because I don't believe the policy specifically mentions natural childbirth, but it does specifically mention the adoption. So by removing that line,
this is for adoption.
This is for adoption.
If I may say, where I think this language came from, this particular sentence, the Family Medical Leave Act was passed in 1993. The Department of Labor governs and ensures that employers are administering the family medical leave properly. But the Department of Labor does not govern leave time. So apparently at some point, and this predates my employment with the district, either the administration recommended to the board and the board adopted, or there was some thought process from the board that wanted that language in there. So we have quoted the policy, and quite frankly, this hasn't been an issue that's been questioned until recently. And so that's why it's come up as an issue to you all. But that's the history of that. The Department of Labor.
I understand all that. I'm just saying I want the language to be changed so that it would include natural birth as well as adoption. So however you need to rewrite it, unless you want me to rewrite it and send it to you, all I'm asking is to treat adoption mothers the same as we treat natural delivery mothers.
And what we'd like to do is strike that sentence, if that was okay.
Fine. However you want to do it, I just want to make it fair to both parents.
And our recommendation in there was to strike that sentence. As you see, it's struck through, so we'll move forward from there.
Mr. Chair. Also, I'd like to, I think I understand it from what I read, but if a male teacher whose wife has a child, what's the maximum days that they could take off to be home with the family?
For a male child,
not male child, male teacher,
a male teacher
whose wife outside the district has a child.
They can take up to 12 weeks for the birth of a child. If the husband and wife both work for the district, the Family Medical Leave Act itself says that together they may take, the minimum standard for the law is that together they can get 12 weeks combined for the same employer.
Okay. Thank you.
Over here on page 3.
Hold on a second. Okay. Are you still, Mr. Manning was just finishing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going on to something. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
On page 3, B, I want to include, and again, I didn't write the verbiage, but if you want me to, I'll go back and do that. But I want it somewhere in there, and first let me ask, Mr. Garrett, I talked with you today about this, so do you want me to go through all of this now, or just did you document the changes I discussed with you earlier today? Because I don't want to take up everybody's time if you already have this.
Well,
or just present it to the board.
Yes, it has to be presented to the board.
What I was on B, for everybody, the sake of everybody here, if the employee does not provide the required health care provider statement within 5 working days upon written request, the district may take appropriate disciplinary actions up to and including recommendation of termination from employment. I think we need to insert somewhere in there, unless there are extreme circumstances, i.e. person could be in a coma, they could be in ICU, they could be highly sedated. We need to cover ourselves in that statement. There are many reasons that a person may not be able to respond within the 5 days. So
and we certainly have, in practice, we handle it that way, but we'll be glad to add that to the language of the
I just want to cover us
yes.
in writing. If we're going to put this in, we're going to spell it out, and you got within 5 days, then somebody could not use good judgment and terminate somebody. But I want that covered so that the person cannot respond. We cannot hold them responsible. And then when we go down to the first paragraph, in order that the district in that area there, where it says the person must report on a daily basis so that they will have coverage. If you have a doctor's statement that this person is returning to work in 3 weeks, that person should not be required to call on a daily basis. And I think as Mr. Garrett and I talked today, this was another board that changed all this language, but we need to make this very clear. If a person has a doctor's statement saying they will be out for 3 weeks, there's no reason for that person to be expected to call in on a daily basis. So however you want to change the verbiage there is fine with me. Does the board agree with what I'm talking about on that?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, unless that changes, though. If I said I'm going to be out for 3 weeks and I find out that I'm not going to be out for 3 weeks and I'm coming back sooner than that,
right,
then I think there needs to be some ability to communicate that.
Yes, it's got to be.
Doesn't have to be every day, yes, but I think flexibility to be able to communicate that and not lock them into having to be out that entire time.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is that they should notify the supervisor of any change in what has been submitted, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, sir, for that conclusion, because that further clarifies it.
Okay, other comments?
Okay, one last thing, I just want to say that even though I know my name was on there, having requested it, that there were many folks on the board who were behind that, and so I don't want people to think that that was only me asking for that. I appreciate the board's interest in this policy. That's all.
Do you want to go on and do the bereavements, and I'll be finished. Page 5.
Same policy.
Yes, okay. Mr. Freeman, I think you might remember when we went through this change many years ago, identifying family members. But I think it needs to be broader, and my memory does not serve me correctly, I know. But somebody on the board at that time wanted to change it to immediate family members being identified as a spouse, child, parent, brother, or sister. I think that needs to be broadened to include grandparents, grandchildren, in-laws, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. Because many nuclear families are made up differently. And to limit that just to parents and children will get a 3-day leave for bereavement, and the others, if it's a grandparent, grandchild, mother-in-law, whatever, only gets 1 day without special permission. I don't think that's fair. So I think we need to go back and change that the way it used to be. A lot of children are reared by grandparents today. We have more and more grandparents raising their children, stepping in and taking.
You're trying to tell me. I understand.
Yeah, so I just think that that's unfair to say 1 day for a grandparent. Grandparents are very significant in the lives of many people, and I think they need to be included in the family part for 3-day leave.
Mr. Chairman, I think the more glaring omission, though, is mother and father not listed as immediate family there.
Oh my God, I missed that.
It says parent.
Where
It
you
says
see
parent.
Oh, it says parent, yeah.
It says parent.
Yeah.
Okay, I was getting ready to say, how did I miss that? It says spouse, child, parent. Thank you, I was getting ready to say, how would I miss that? Yeah. But those are my thoughts. I think that and some in-laws are very significant in people's lives. Some in-laws are closer than the biological parents.
Leave of absence, is that a paid leave, or I can't.
Bereavement is paid.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's very generous.
State is the same way.
That's what.
The state is the same way.
I don't know, I just. What's the difference?
Bring obituary with the state. It's the same way.
I guess someone who's never worked for the state. I just don't, some of these things, I just don't relate to them. I'm just sorry about it. It's impossible.
James, you work for the state.
I'm
The
sorry, what?
state's changed since I left.
What was the question? I apologize. I was
What are
reading.
you down there
I think it's a
doing?
very generous
It's
policy.
correct,
That's what I'm
Melinda.
saying.
Oh, I
No,
mean,
but
no,
you
I,
have to take into consideration for travel time.
Yes.
Has it changed yet?
No.
I don't know. I've had very understanding supervisors everywhere I've worked. So in the cases where I needed time, I was allowed to maneuver within those parameters. So
Mr. Jackson just said it's the same. It's still consistent. What I was saying is consistent with what the state policy is on bereavement.
can I ask one more question on the bereavement? I see we have parent spouses. We're going through this. Does this in any way include those who may have significant others, as opposed to through marriage?
We have not had that question raised. Typically, if we have something odd and unusual, which we do, we will typically have the person put the request in writing, and then we will respond. And certainly, if they don't agree with our response, they would bring it to you all. So that has not been a question that's been raised to this point in time.
So they would have to put in writing to have that if
And
they
then-
were recognized as same-sex marriage kind of thing, or not marriage but together in a very obvious way.
They would put that in our procedure within benefits is we would receive that request and we would submit the request to Dr. Brochu for her and Mr. Garrick for their opinion. And if they feel that this is something that really needs to go to the board, it's a policy interpretation issue, or if they think they can answer that within the language of the policy, that would be the avenue in which it would be addressed.
Is that something, Mr. Garrick, that's come through
No,
to your...
as Ms. Batchelder said, that's not something that has come to us to this point.
But you'll handle it if it comes to us.
Yes.
And not have to send it to the board.
Well, I'm not going to say that. No, ma'am. I can't say that. I can't do anything that's
I know what
against
you're
the
saying.
policy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you. That was really a joke, okay? To avoid us from dealing with it. No, but
Thank you.
Are you saying, Mr. Manning? Are you saying you want to put something in policy with that, or
Well,
just wait until it happens?
I mean, I at the same time that I hate to say wait until it happens, it's, I just want to make sure that we're affording that ability for those families, as it becomes more of a kind of commonplace sort of thing in our society. And I would hope that it's not a situation where we find out later that it was a problem before we put that in. So I don't know if the board's open to it. I mean, I'm open to the language. I don't know how that would be crafted. And so if we can handle it internally, I might be okay with not doing the change now, but certainly don't want a case where we have a bad situation that blows up on us. So I'm not sure what I'm asking for. I was asking if it was accounted for. If the rest of the board is open to it, I'm certainly open to, seeing what that language might be.
I believe I'm for getting out ahead of the state of South Carolina as far as who's related to who.
So we shouldn't be ahead.
No.
I think
Just
Garrick, you
as
had
the
something to say?
issue with the adoption came to our attention,
Yeah.
and we have it to this point for discussion, I'm sure we would do the same thing for situations like you mentioned.
I'm fine with leaving that for now, but I just want it to be in the back of our minds that we may be seeing that in the near future as things progress.
And in this case, the language that was so black and white in the policy on the adoption question, we felt that this is a policy issue that's got to come.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we could be assured that it would be handled in a quickly manner of time so the person does not miss the funeral, right?
Sure, and and again, if someone gets a decision that they're not, well, and again, I guess that's the next question: is if we have a situation with an upcoming funeral.
Well, if it's a funeral and they take the time and go to the funeral, then we would have to decide whether to grant that day or not grant that day.
So they would.
They're
put
going
in
to,
their
if we
request.
get a situation like that, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I would think they would attend the funeral and then ask for the leave, and then we would make a decision whether that leave would be granted. And in the case of the scenario Mr. Manning mentioned, I'm granting that leave, or I'm going to sit down with Dr.
The reason
Brochu.
I said that is because with the state, you have to request bereavement leave prior to taking it. So I'm not sure how they do it in the district, but we always had to submit our bereavement request in.
Well, with the policy, in most cases, they check the policy, they see that they have 3 days. If they're going over that 3 days, then we get a request to extend.
So if the person, we get that situation, they can go on to the funeral, come back, present their documentation, and request that they have 3 days bereavement time. And then you guys could, okay.
And they would certainly have the option to use personal leave. There are other, or vacation leave. There are other categories of paid leave that if the issue ultimately came to the board denied that, you know, the worst case scenario, we're not going to deny someone being able to go to a funeral, but the issue would likely be then, is it paid or unpaid? And it's the prerogative of the board on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like for us to try to discourage developing a policy where we are operating in a state that hasn't decided on a law regarding that issue that you raised, Mr. Manning. And so until that's resolved, I'm not real comfortable developing sort of an autonomous policy that would be a standalone where the state, if I were in a state of, well, if I were in another state that where the laws have been passed, then absolutely. But in a state where the law has not been passed in regard to that question, I'm uncomfortable developing a policy regarding that. That's just my own opinion.
Mr. Jackson, in line, I can also understand once we go down that road, there's probably a lot of other policies that would sort of follow in line, and so we probably are best not to formalize that now. Though I hope the district would be as sensitive as it can be in those situations.
Definitely.
That was all I had, other than, and I'm going to shut up after this one.
We need clarification on the definition of family before you move on.
Did you guys agree with me on that, or what?
You rattle off a long list. I didn't get them all.
I incorporated.
Ms. Anderson, are you looking at the second paragraph on the bereavement leave,
Correct.
where it has all those relationships, and you'd like that to be placed in the first paragraph?
All of them?
Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Mr. Gary, is there like an HR definition to either nuclear or extended family that might cover what Ms. Anderson's asking for?
You have in your policy about ethics and conflict of interest, you have another definition in that policy for family.
Right, I understand, but that wasn't my question. My question was, is there an HR terminology for what is a nuclear family is made up of, or an extended family is made up of?
I can speak to that. And that this again becomes one of those issues where the Department of Labor does not define the use of paid leave and mandate for employers what you must pay for. So it's a purely employer designated definition.
Gotcha. That answered my question. There's not a definition.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
thank you. I say put in Ms. Anderson's list, and let's take a look at what it is and see if it needs to grow or shrink once we see it in writing.
Okay, let's move on. You want to submit yours? I did remember most of them. It's probably best to have them written down.
Well, it's just the second paragraph here.
But you've added relationships.
I've just put these relationships, this
move 'em up.
paragraph, move it up with the first paragraph.
So everybody gets 3 days for this.
Right. And Mr. Chair, let me ask you something real quick. question this under competency training and workshops because is there a way we can limit the number of days that teachers are? That'll be it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, Mr. Garrick, you may be confused, but between now and 2 weeks, we will hone this in for you, okay?
Thank you, sir.
So,
Do you need my notes or me to send you my notes, or you have everything I was talking about?
I took notes.
she just moved the paragraph up to include it all, okay? Thank you.
We have the next one also.
Yeah, right. Revisions, retirement, professional staff, policy, GDQC.
In this one, we're combining GDQC and GCQE, retirement of professional staff and retirement of support staff, and we're bringing in line with what the legislature did last year, and it's coming before you for your consideration. Any questions?
It seems to be read verbatim as to what the new revised state law is now.
It's consistent.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? So you just wrote the policy to follow the law, pretty much. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That'll be up for vote next meeting. Okay, agenda items for May 28th, which will be back here at Polo. We usually go to schools on our second meeting, but because it's at the end of the year, nobody really wants us to come. So. And I don't blame you. The kids are not, they don't want to perform too much. So we'll be right back here on our next meeting. So, Dr. Brochu, what do we have on the agenda?
We have our student learning report. We have the two policies that we've been just discussing up for vote, for first reading rather. And then we also have an authorization for the superintendent to apply for available state, federal, foundation, and other special funded programs for fiscal year 7/1/13 through 6/30/14. That's an annual approval. And then we will have our Common Core Part 2 report.
Okay, does someone want to talk about, I got some email about snapshot, having another.
Got the information. Thank you.
Any other items for the future? Maybe not next time, but hearing none, we'll go on to our second public participation period. Is there anyone at this time would like to address the board? Please come forward. Hearing none, we'll go to board superintendent comments. Mr. Manning, I'm going to start with you.
I actually don't have any comments. Thank you.
Just one comment. The students that share their experience with the exchange students, that's a great experience. And I can recall as a teacher at Pontiac Elementary when Beth Elliott had a exchange teacher there from Japan. And I was afforded the opportunity to allow that teacher to stay at my home for 6 weeks, and we still keep in contact. And I think that was back in maybe 2001, Beth. So that's a great experience. So thank you for that.
No comments.
The only comment I have is I concur with what Ms. Johnson said, but the turnaround program this afternoon was simply wonderful. It just lights up my heart between that and graduation to see those children so excited and dressed up and proud of themselves. It really does something to my heart, and I see why it's so important for us to work so hard for those students, because they turn themselves around and you can see the pride in most of them. Some of them were afraid, but the pride that as they walked across to receive their honors just made the day for me. really got my day made about that math. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read a quote. Matter of fact, I read it this morning. It was real interesting, and many of you may have heard it before, but I had never heard it before. I thought it was quite interesting, and it said basically that we must respect other people's opinions because no one has a monopoly on the truth. And so I just thought it was appropriate to share that. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have to say.
Dr. Brashear?
Just a couple of things. I also want to congratulate the Turnaround Achievement Award winners, and I think that we had just a wonderful video that really highlighted their stories in a great way. I wanted to mention that we recently completed taping the latest edition of the Superintendent's Education Affairs Show. This segment focused on our military students and all of the many ways that Richland 2 is reaching out to them and to their families. We heard from parents, we heard from students, and we heard from support folks within our district and certainly from Fort Jackson. And I believe that will be airing 4 times a day on R2 TV and on our Richland 2 YouTube page. And I'm also very excited about our district's involvement in the upcoming Walk for Life, Run for Life. We are partnering with Richland 1, and we hope to have a team from each and every one of our schools. The kickoff is May 23rd at Rigor High School, and it's certainly important to our district and Richland 1, and most importantly to the community at large. That's it.
I don't believe I have any comments tonight. Do I hear a motion to go into second executive session?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Are you going to bring that up for me? Okay.
Discussion of student and personnel matters.
All the things that we had not.
Does that cover it, Mr. Chairman? Student and personnel was what we had left.